Namaste, welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is Kushalmehra. A very warm welcome to everyone. So, today we're going to talk about something that I'm very happy Suhel has raised the voice about this because 2 years ago I had done one chota sa podcast with Ruben Ibrahim and Ms. Ingurani about urban infrastructure in India. And I was like, ये मैं अकेला क्यों रोता रहता हूँ? And when I saw Suhail talk about it, and then obviously he went up and Pritika Hingurani. And when I had I watched the ANI podcast, it made me so happy. So I reached out to Suhail, and Suhail, as always, never says no. So Suhail, how are you, first of all? क्या
I'm
हाल है?
very well, very well. Thank you.
चलो एक बात बताओ कि was the flooding a trigger point? मगर flooding तो हर साल होती है, तो what happened this time? हुआ क्या जो इतना गुस्सा क्यों आ गया?
See, ये गुस्सा नहीं है. लोगों को लगा कि भाई ये गुस्सा है, पर्सन इज एंग्री, बाबा. नो, गुस्सा नहीं था, ये फ्रस्ट्रेशन भी नहीं थी. इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट, कुशल, फॉर सिटीजन्स टू वॉइस देयर डिस्कम्फर्ट विद द पावर्स दैट बी. होता क्या है, हम लोग हर वक्त डरे रहते हैं, और डरने की कोई बात नहीं है, क्योंकि ना तो मेरे को कोई पॉलिटिकल माइलेज चाहिए, ना मेरा कोई पॉलिटिकल एजेंडा है. इट्स I said that it's successive BJP governments in Gurugram. I've said the same thing about how Arvind Kejriwal and Aam Aadmi Party brought Delhi to ruin. See, also remember, which very few people know, I did a lot of work in what I would call urban renewal when the late Sheila Dikshit was our chief minister in Delhi. I worked very closely with her, and I did three things. Say no to plastics, my Delhi I care, but the most important was a coinage which I gave in my word called Bhagidari. Bhagidari at that time was conceived as a partnership between RWAs and the government, ताकि लोगों को ये लगे कि भाई सरकार हमारी है, पर हमारा भी भाग है इसमें, और हमें भी कंट्रीब्यूट करना है. होता क्या हमारे देश में, अगर आप किसी अपने घर पे रहते हो तो आपका घर आप साफ रखोगे, बाहर जितना कूड़ा कलेश होना चाहिए हो जाए, you're not bothered. That is also the level of citizen apathy that exists in India. Number one. Number two, yes, I did call out Naib Singh Saini. I did earlier, I said the same thing to ML Khattar on Twitter. The point is that the government has to be willing to not only listen but to do. A government cannot say कि भाई हाँ ये प्रॉब्लम है. अगर प्रॉब्लम है आपको सॉल्व करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि आपको पावर हम लोग ने इसलिए दी है ताकि आप गवर्न करें. ये थोड़ी कि आप अपने हाथ पे हाथ बैठ के आप चुप रहें. One. Number two, please understand, it is no one's case that the citizen is not guilty. The citizen is guilty. How is the citizen guilty? Citizen is guilty through extrapolation. Number one, हम लोग कूड़ा जहां मर्जी हो हम लोग फेंकते हैं. We have zero sense of civic balance. Number two, the developers, the real estate people are also creating mayhem. But my point is that while they are creating mayhem, then bring in laws to prevent that. You cannot have lawlessness. और यहाँ जंगल राज थोड़ी चल सकता है. आप ना तो रियल एस्टेट या डेवलपर्स या जो भी नेक्सस है उसको भी नहीं तोड़ोगे, सिटीजन्स को भी नहीं पनिश करोगे इफ द सिटीजन्स आर एरेंट, एंड देन यूल से हम लोग क्या करें. दैट्स नंबर टू. नंबर थ्री, flooding is not an issue related to any kind of nexus. It is related to two things: civil engineering and preventative measures. There are no preventative measures. हम लोग को मालूम है हर साल मानसून होगा. हर साल मानसून के समय ही there are TV programs, there are people who are expressing angst. Why? Why is our preparedness so miserable as far as urban India is concerned? And finally, my point was, if Gurugram is your golden goose, and please remember, Gurugram is a very important, like Bengaluru is, it's a very important symbol of new India. Do you want new India to be defined by floods, by garbage, by stench? Or do you want new India to be, defined by smart cities run by smart people, where there is greater civic sense and there is greater citizenry participation? So that was the context.
See, I understand, but the problem in India, Suhail, is, and see, as someone who's been involved, you've met so many policymakers in your life. Um, I know now, I have now been, talking to you for a while. And the biggest bane of India, Suhail, is that important things never come to the fore. For example, when it comes to the state of our cities, everybody knows it's an urban planning issue. It's actually genuinely an urban planning issue, and bits and bobs of it were touched upon the ANI podcast, and I highly recommend everyone to go and watch that. That's why I'm not going to touch bits and bobs over there. Like, I got Ruben Abraham and Pritika on my podcast. They are experts, they are a think tank based on UK and Mumbai, and they look at urban issues. Now, vertical expansion is something that would be a solution for a place like Mumbai. In Gurgaon also it would be, and how we manage our roads. I'll give you a small example. So when I was living in Mumbai for the whole year, now I live half of the year in Mumbai. I remember attending a presentation by the Maharashtra Pollution Control Board, and this is directly related to our urban infrastructure. And they told me that 55% of our pollution, the reason for that is something as stupid as that we don't make sidewalks properly in our cities. And because we don't make sidewalks in our cities, the particulate matter distribution in our cities increases because of that. Now, where how do we actually hold accountability? Abhi, if you go and tell the chief minister, he'll be like, मैं क्या municipal corporation का आदमी हूँ. You don't have an elected mayor in Mumbai. In the case of Mumbai, आप दिल्ली में बोल दोगे अरे भाई केजरीवाल तो शहर सिटी का चीफ मिनिस्टर है, मगर मुंबई के केस में है नहीं ना. Most cities in India do not have an elected mayor. So how do we solve this is the biggest problem. Na?
So there are two issues. Number one, you're wrong about important versus non-important, and I'll tell you why. We have the wrong set of priorities. अब हमारे देश की सरकारों ने रिलीजन को इंपॉर्टेंट बनाया, क्या आप खाओगे इंपॉर्टेंट बनाया है. They have not made living in India important. The only person, and not to say this, but the only person ever since independence who even thought about it was Narendra Modi when he launched Swachh Bharat. Everyone laughed. Arey yaar, Swachh Bharat, ye kya ho gaya? Let me tell you, when he talked about Swachh Bharat, open defecation, toilets for all, these are important things about dignity, decency, civic lifestyle, and proper living. उसके बाद आपने क्या किया? कुछ नहीं. I don't care whether the mayor is elected or he's bloody brought down by a helicopter or whatever happens. The point, Kushal, is that no one cares about these things. I'll tell you why. They are not politically relevant. जो लोग गुरुग्राम में रहते हैं, 80% of those people are non-voters. They might not even vote. If they vote, they will also vote on grounds of religion, on grounds of this, on grounds of that. You tell me, I want to ask you a simple question. Since ML Khattar was chief minister, now Naib Singh Saini, the BJP government has performed miserably in Gurugram. Let's forget the rest of Haryana. Let's imagine rest of Haryana, unhone puri haryali, bichha di hai. But they have screwed up Gurugram. They still get elected. The MP of Gurugram is from BJP, who's not visible. Rao Inderjeet Singh, I don't even know where he is. If he's still, alive, kicking, where he is, God alone knows. We don't know who the hell the MLAs are. And it is also my fault that I don't know who the MLAs are, because I should as a citizen, but I know कि उसका नाम जान के होगा क्या? कुछ होना तो है नहीं. So it is an unholy situation where when we vote for people, we don't vote for development. We are voting on very sectarian grounds. And I'm not against anyone voting on religious grounds. It's their bloody problem. But then you can't complain. If you continue to bring back the same people to power, then you are actually sending out a signal that bhai sab theek hai. So agar sab theek hai, then you can't complain. So the first issue on this whole urban renewal debate was raised by me innocuously in an Indian Express function. Or hua kya? LG of Delhi, the LG of Delhi, Vinay Saxena and Amitabh Kant were in conversation. I was nowhere even in the first row, nothing. I was at the back, where I always am. And I was asked, would you like to ask a question? I said, no, I want to pass a comment. Because that whole discussion was around Delhi, city, blah, blah, blah. And that's when I said, and it has been edited for, paucity of space or whatever. But in my remarks there, which is available on YouTube, I said, 3 terms have gone to the BJP. It is the Khattars and the Sainis who are letting down their own prime minister. Because the prime minister has very clearly said that we need to bring about urban renewal, which he did as chief minister, both with Ahmedabad in general, Sabarmati in particular. See the changes that he made when he was Gujarat CM. So he understands the value of having cities that are livable. पर यार कोई सुनता ही नहीं. जब मैंने वो बात कही and that comment went viral, a lot of people were emboldened to then start putting up videos and photographs on social media about the state of their environment, of their localities. From an innocuous comment that I passed, it became a kind of social movement where concerned citizens were voicing their anger. And I got calls, including 3 from people related to the Haryana government. And they said to me, we know you have no political angst, we have no political agenda, but ye ho raha. I said, I'm not interested. I am no one for you to be accountable to except as a citizen. आप अपना काम करो, we will praise you. आप जब काम नहीं करोगे, बैंड बजाएंगे. वही है.
But this takes me, and actually एक live viewer ने बहुत intelligent question, मेरे हिसाब से ये बहुत जरूरी है, सुहेल. इंडिया में आज भी our politics is circled around fantasization and fetishization. I have nothing against rural India before somebody gets me wrong, but it is fetishization of rural India. गांव की जिंदगी, गांव का ये. भाई मैं तो अंबेडकर के उसमें बिल्कुल बिलीव करता हूं, जो अंबेडकर का फेमस कोट था about what rural India is. It's a cesspool of communalism, ये वो mediocrity. Urban India में लोग aspirationally आते हैं, वहां पे लोग, you know, you are forced to deal with people of different religion, different caste, different race, and you kind of, and the problem is India के issues आज भी rural है. पॉलिटी हमारी 50% अर्बन हो गई है और अर्बन वोट बैंक नहीं बन रहा है. डू यू थिंक दैट इज वन ऑफ द रीजंस, सुहेल?
Absolutely. But there again, please understand, it is not about rural and urban. Just like in consumer spending and consumer uplift, there is a very thin line today between what you would define as urban and rural. There is mass migration. Go back into history, 1963 onwards, when the first seeds of the Naxalite movement were sown in Bengal. The whole movement centered around the fact that our villages were emptying out and coming into urban India because of lack of employment. So today the situation is far better than it has ever been. But the problem is urban India is still more attractive than rural India. So when you have migration from rural to urban, where people are looking at a better aspirational life, no matter what kind of life it may be, you also have cities that are bursting at their seams, which means you need forward planning. You don't need retrospective planning. हमारे देश में हर चीज साला रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव ही होती है कि हाँ जब होगा देख लेंगे. अरे भाई होना तो है ही. अच्छा इस साल भी बारिश होगी. They must be thinking like idiots. हाँ इस साल बारिश होगी. Of course होगी. हर साल होती है. So why can't we do some level of forward planning? Why can't we be more empathetic towards the plight of our citizens? Why can't we plan our cities better? Let me tell you, and here I will say, the government is responsible, so are our so-called famous civil engineers. You tell me, Kushal, why should a bridge in India take so long to build? A. B. Why the hell should a bridge collapse so easily? The bridges in Haryana are leaking. You have waterfalls during the rains. So obviously, there is again a nexus at work. Either you have very poor civil engineering, you have very poor contractors. Why do you have poor contractors? Because they are making money by paying money to the government people, if they are. So corruption is always at the root of this kind of thing. Plus, you don't have punishment. You don't have deterrent punishment. आप क्या करोगे? आप एक PWD engineer को arrest करोगे. Have you ever arrested a chief minister? Answer is no. Have you arrested the municipal commissioner of a city? The answer is no. So until you create deterrent punishment, until you create a wave of accountability, none of these things will change. आप चिल्लाते रहो, हर साल आप चिल्लाओगे, हर साल आप you know break your bones trying to get people to see reason, but it's not going to happen.
But see, as far as this aspect is concerned, the civil engineering aspect, I would not be in a position to comment on how capable civil engineers in India are, is because it's not my area of knowledge.
Neither
So
is
I
it mine. Just see the way they plan the roads, the way
no,
they
what
plan bridges. The damn bridges, flyover banta hai, it doesn't meet. Sometimes bridges don't meet midway. I
वो तो
think
गोखले ब्रिज बॉम्बे.
so. There you are. So you don't need to go very far. So who do you blame? You
देखिए
can't now blame Donald Trump for that also.
नहीं नहीं, और मजे की बात यह है कि गोखले ब्रिज कभी अर्बन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का पार्ट नहीं बना, मगर अर्बन टूरिज्म का पार्ट बन गया. लोग तो जाके सेल्फी लेके आ रहे
That's
थे
what I'm saying.
कि लोगों को और कुछ काम नहीं मिला कि वो लोग सेल्फी ले रहे थे गोखले ब्रिज पे जाके. बोला और कुछ नहीं तो कम से कम इधर सेल्फी तो ले ले, ये मार्वल. अरे फॉरगेट दैट, आई थिंक इट वाज इन डोंबिवली एक्सटेंडेड एरिया जो आगे आता है मुंबई के. या किधर तो एक वो फ्लाईओवर बनाया, वो 24 घंटे में उसमें खड्डे हो गए बारिश के बाद. 24 घंटे में उसकी इनॉग्रेशन के. क्या बोलें. सो या इट इज अ प्रॉब्लम, बट डोंट यू थिंक अगेन इट इज बिकॉज इन इंडिया the municipal corporations and the mayors are not empowered. If they were empowered, we could hold them accountable, na?
It's not about empowerment. It's about the willingness to do. This whole thing, ki haan, bhai, people are not empowered. You have to seize authority and accountability. It's not going to be given to you on a platter. You tell me, if I'm the MCG commissioner in Gurgaon, is it not my goddamn responsibility to make sure that the municipal facilities of Gurugram work? If they don't work, aap istifa de do, bring it to the attention of the media. Imagine the chief minister or the deputy commissioner of Gurgaon is screwing around with you. Bring it to the fore. Why don't you? Because people are scared. Remember the other day, even on Smita Prakash's podcast, Umesh Sehgal, who's the former Delhi chief secretary, told me, nahi, this system, भाई सिस्टम का हम लोग क्या चूना लगाएंगे सिस्टम पे, क्या करें सिस्टम को. एवरीथिंग यू ब्लेम, भाई द सिस्टम इज एट फॉल्ट. वी आर द सिस्टम, वी आर द पीपल. द MCG commissioner is another Indian like us. He's part of the system. If he doesn't change the system, or if I don't force him to change the system as an ordinary citizen, how will the system change? System is not some obsolete, audacious entity that no one sees or no one knows. These are the issues. And the point, Kushal, is we are so scared of truth to power that we don't want to bring up these issues. कि भाई हमको क्यों पंगे लेने हैं? This हम क्यों पंगे लें is what is destroying our country. The fact that you refuse to make your politically elected people accountable is the biggest sin, number one. Number two, you talked about mayors and being elected, blah, blah. I don't care. He is a bureaucrat, the commissioner of the Municipal Corporation Gurgaon. I, as a taxpayer, am paying his salary. He is a public servant. The word servant is terrible, but that's how they're classified. Civil servants, public servant. He's responsible. He's accountable to the state. He's accountable to the nation. He's accountable to the city. He's accountable to the municipality. Where and who is pinning that accountability on these people? And why are they not doing it? Because of latent fear. And let me tell you, anyone who says, oh, आज के टाइम पे लोग डरते, नहीं, लोग हर वक्त डरे हुए हैं, इसीलिए we have come to this pass. That's the problem. Then you have the courts of law. The courts of law would interfere in everything, but they will not interfere in this because the judges live good lives. उनके घर पे पानी नहीं आता, means flooded waters तो नहीं आते. So they don't care. So where does one go? You tell me, where do you go? Whose door do you knock? The only recourse you have is to take these people to task publicly. A, B, name and shame. C, go after them with a vengeance every day until they do their work. D, if all else fails, start a civic campaign. And I'm not talking about some stupid protest and black badge rubbish. No, a silent, dignified march to the office of the commissioner. But वो भी नहीं होगा. But as I said, people are happy living in their cocoons. तो भाई मैं क्यों पंगे लूं? I may have evaded house tax, I may have done something, so why should I take a panga? It is the complicity through silence that ails our nation today.
Yeah, but so I understand what you're saying. Essentially, the problem in India is, let's say, a businessman, right? A small businessman. ऐसा कोई छोटा बिजनेसमैन नहीं होगा सोहेल जिसके कोई ना कोई नॉन कंप्लायंस का इशू नहीं होगा. ऐसा हो ही
I'm
नहीं सकता.
telling
इंडिया
you,
में लॉज ही ऐसे यूनिक है.
many years ago, there's a very dear friend of mine. He told me one day, he says, it's all right for you to take pangas. He's saying, I run a factory. He says, and that factory could be shut down. Place it on the bed here. Factory could be shut down if a boiler inspector files a report against me. So why should I risk that? But here's my point, Kushal. You and I may not risk it. We may, be worried. But the point is, so what? What now? What then? Plus, and this the Prime Minister understands very well, these chaps don't realize the long-term damage you're doing to brand India. Because when the newspapers internationally report a person couldn't get to the Coca-Cola office in Gurgaon because of flooded waters, what do you think happens in Atlanta? Only two: ridicule and derision. There's no praise. Arey wah, Venice bhi hota hai. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, what a state of affairs in India. Who's being impacted? Brand India. Who is brand India? You and me. What then happens? Investment attractiveness suffers. These chaps do not have the minutest of intellect to understand the kind of damage they're causing through this kind of flagrant violation of basic civic amenities and principles.
Fair enough, but I think it's the fear that the common man has, because
Of course he has.
Yeah, it should be
तो फिर
appreciated.
कौन करे? Let uncommon people do it. Let the
वही
media
है,
do it. The media does it, but the media is also scared. Citizens are scared. Real estate लोग करेंगे नहीं, developers करेंगे नहीं. Opposition party जब करती है आप उनको गालियां देते हो, तो करेगा कौन? डोनाल्ड ट्रंप आएगा, मार्कोस फ्रॉम फिलीपींस आएगा, कौन करेगा?
एक ही कम्युनिटी है जो कर सकती है, वो है सैलरीड क्लास.
Salaried class will never do it. You read Pawan Verma's seminal work, The Great Indian Middle Class. He said the middle class, his surmise was the middle class is A, the most selfish, and B, the most self-centered. In the sense, they are saying, yaar, hum log ko kyun pange lene? And I don't blame them. Kyun pange lene? And you say middle class, tomorrow they'll do a fiddle with your house tax. What will you do? You'll keep making the rounds of the municipal office. The system, what they call the system, is again a nexus of citizens who break the law and the government, which understands that they can then squeeze you and they can twist your arm because they know that you're a habitual lawbreaker. In this context, therefore, Kushal, brand India, brand Gurugram all suffer. So my question to you, therefore, is where is the solution? Because if we don't vote for development, if we don't vote against inaction, if we don't vote against corruption, what are we voting for? We are voting for issues that have nothing to do with the way we live. If you're voting for issues that have nothing to do with the way you live, then you have no one to blame. As simple. It's a very simple, logical chronology in terms of how we should understand today's India. And I'm not only saying Prime Minister. I'm even saying whether it was the Congress. Congress had some great leaders and still do. Sheila Dikshit took the bull by the horns. At that time, Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. Was there any issue? No. There is a way of doing work and there is a way of extracting work. Arvind Kejriwal was an anarchist, absolute anarchist. उसकी पूरी जिंदगी उसने पंगे लिए हैं. और पंगे पंगे ले लेके नंगा हो गया बेचारा. There was no development. There was only whining, crying, coughing, sneezing, muffling. So, where you have great leaders, you can make that change. Why do we not have so many great leaders? Because the leaders are also, managing upwards. But as long as I keep the Haryana state president happy, he keeps someone else happy, he keeps someone else happy. Now, ML Khattar, I have no issues with him. He seems to be a decent man. But they say he made a mess of Gurgaon. But he got a promotion. He's in the union cabinet. Kya kar loge aap? So when people see inept people or people who've not had a great track record being promoted, then your faith in governance and leadership dims even further. And that's the issue.
Yeah, but I think one of the biggest mismatches in India is the amount of Lok Sabha seats urban India has vis-a-vis the amount of Lok Sabha seats rural India has. I think that itself is a giant problem. The moment number of Lok Sabha representation in India increases, and I think the next delimitation should focus on that. For example, a city like Mumbai should not have just 7 Lok Sabha seats. A city like Mumbai should be having at least 10 or 12 Lok Sabha seats.
Yeah,
With
but
the kind of
that has got its own genesis. वो debate कर करके तो हम ही मर जाएंगे. हमारे lifetime में तो I don't think it's gonna, have a material change there. Even with delimitation, whatever, it's not gonna change. A, B, Kushal, I'm a great believer, even in the way I advise companies in management principles. Please recognize one thing. Solve the minor problems first. Don't solve, world problems. हम minor problems solve कर नहीं सकते, but we will talk about macro issues. That's the problem with our country and with us as a people. आप इंडियंस को पूछो, हमारे देशवासियों को आप पूछो कि भैया गुरुग्राम कैसे होगा. यार गुरुग्राम जो छोड़ो, ये जो ट्रम्प ने टैरिफ लगाई हैं वो जियोपॉलिटिकली कैसे हमें इम्पैक्ट करेगी. अरे यार घंटा जियोपॉलिटिकली इम्पैक्ट करेगी, वो तो करेगी. What about the real issues? We have a habit of jumping. Our life is like a high jump. We will ignore the real issues and we will jump to something that is not solvable by us. But for adda and for discussion is very important.
But politicians, in my view, I mean, you've met enough politicians in your life. I've met enough politicians in my life. Politicians are always about short termism. And they are always for short termism and what gives them. One of the biggest reasons, I always say, India में MP, MLA और municipal corporator तीनों है ना टट्टी पिशाब issues ही करते रहते हैं. Policy. Actually, MLA और MP का काम तो policy issues है.
See, let me tell you. Today in India, you have many examples. Let me list two for you because I've been to those places multiple times. You have Jamshedpur in the east. You have Jamnagar in the west. Both have been created by their respective industries. The Tatas created Jamshedpur way back in the early 1900s, and Jamnagar was created by Mukesh and Neeta Ambani. Both are running brilliantly. Both are planned. Way before that, Kubizia planned Chandigarh. Then you had Ajit Gulabchand, who created Lavasa, which was the only hill station that was created post-independence. Lavasa went into a political slugfest for no rhyme or reason. Jamnagar and Jamshedpur are there because the respective industries or industrialists are supporting them. आप क्यों नहीं N. Chandrasekharan, the chairman of Tata Sons, and Mukesh Ambani of Reliance को आप क्यों नहीं request करके बोल सकते कि भाई please send your key people to understand the dynamics of the problems we face and how we can address them. You have some of the largest corporates in Gurgaon. Why can't those corporates pitch in, both with talent and with money? You have some of the biggest consulting firms on the same road in Gurgaon, whether it's EY, Deloitte, KPMG, unko pucho. But there is no desire. The problem with us as a country is we think we know everything and we know deadly jack. But we will never admit it. हर आदमी ये सोचता है कि भाई वो नोबेल लॉरिएट है. He would even misspell Nobel. तो ये तो हमारा हाल है. And I'm not being cynical here, Kushal. I'm giving you the reality. This reality, no one wants to share for the fear of being either unpopular or harassed politically. But let me tell you, there is no political harassment. Or agar hogi, then you have to face it and then you have to do whatever you have to do. But the point is, silence cannot be the only ammunition that citizens have, where you suffer in silence. We are not the cloistered nuns of Carmel. There has to be a mechanism by way of which citizens voice their concern. And I'm glad that a Smita Prakash or an Anand Goenka of Indian Express do what they do, because this allows people not to vent, but to focus. Not in anger, but in solidarity. That's what you need. The point is, solidarity is also missing because we don't give a rat's ass. And until and unless we as a collective society begin to understand that, see, I'm 62. Okay, I have a home in Goa, I have a home in Gurgaon. मैं 20 साल ज्यादा से ज्यादा जीऊंगा, मेरे को क्या लेना देना है? I can also sit quietly here. Where I live in DLF, it's paradise. I'll go to Magnolias, I'll walk around there, चुपचाप रहो. मेरे को क्या चिंता है? मेरे को क्यों पंगे लेने की जरूरत है? पर जरूरत है. If I'm a responsible citizen, because it is not about me. I see little children. Luckily, my daughter and my wife live in Goa, and my daughter goes to school in Goa. Now, what happens to children who live in Gurgaon who cannot attend school at least 5 to 6 times during the monsoons? What happens to the poor teachers who can't reach school? What happens to the daily wager who can't go to work? What happens to office goers who get stranded? What happens to people who get electrocuted and die? Who is responsible? Someone has to say it. Now, हम लोग सब अपना हाथ फोल्ड करके बोल सकते हैं कि भाई, it's not my problem, it's not my monkey, it's not my circus. But it's time to make it our circus, because we are the monkeys if we don't make it our circus.
I understand that we are the monkeys, that we don't make it our circus. But I see, this is the only place where I'll disagree with you, is that everything is incentive driven. And I think politicians have smartly kept the urban voter less powerful in this country.
To change it, find an escape route. Indians are brilliant. We are brilliant at finding, using jugaad of a bypass. Find something. But there are two ways ahead, Kushal. One is, you and I can say, भाई urban vote की situation ये है तो हम क्या करें? हाथ पे हाथ रख के आप बैठ जाओ. यहाँ you say, I know that this is a voting pattern situation. In spite of this, what are the 3 things I can do? We do not strategize. As a nation, we are more tactical than strategic, and that's where the problem is.
No, see, this is where I agree with you, and there have to be tangible ways. Why I was so happy when you raised this issue is because it was unbelievable that I was the only Indian podcaster who spoke about the abysmal urban infrastructure 2 years ago on my podcast.
People started calling me. I started getting calls from the very famous architect Pinakin Patel from Alibag. People from Kiran Mazumdar Shaw wrote about it on Twitter. Bangalore ka ye haal hai, Alibag ka ye haal hai. It actually opened a Pandora's box where people's anguish was being expressed. But that is not enough.
No, it is
not.
not.
Anguish is not a solution. Anger is not a solution. The only solution is a solution.
Yeah.
So what is the solution? What is the way forward?
I think one of the things that you have said on the naming and shaming bit, right? There is a great way of doing it. If you don't want this thing to come back on you, right? You can always be an anonymous X account.
That nonsense I don't believe in. Agar bolna hai, you must have the courage to put your name to it. This anonymity and, babbar sher tactics don't work. I don't subscribe to it. If I genuinely believe that I'm doing it out of the conviction of my heart, without any manipulation, without any agenda, I will do it. At times people used to say, if I did that seminal speech, or I think it was seminal on Brand Modi, are you a bhakt? Please correct me if I'm wrong on any of those issues. When Rahul Gandhi did Bharat Jodo Yatra, I was the first to praise it in an article. Not that I said it to someone, in their ear. You must have the sense of purpose and a fair balance of neutrality, which allows you to speak your mind in a cohesive, calibrated, and conclusive manner. So cohesive, calibrated, and conclusive. And no one will be upset. And if they're upset, good for them. I'm not marrying them. Churchill famously said the only person you've got to be popular with is your spouse. When I last checked, I was still popular with Lakshmi. So I really don't give a monkey's toss. Now the thing is, should we all stop speaking? No. Then there'll be no accountability. आप करते रहना जो आप करोगे जितने साल आपने किया है. You tell me this flooding menace and this civic amenity menace or civic situation in Gurugram has been on since the time I moved, 2015. When 2025. 10 साल से by and large लोग तो चुप थे. I was tweeting every time. लोग तो चुप थे. आपकी चुप्पी ने क्या कर दिया? Matters got worse. Because what the powers that be think is silence means we are doing a good job. They are also in denial. There is a time and a place, Kushal, for every Indian to stand up and say, this is not on. We are paying taxes. We're paying very high taxes. Although I'm not a great believer that India has high taxes. I think it's very reasonable. But if we are paying taxes, the commensurate service is not a dein, it's not a favor, it is our right. And at times, a nation must exercise its rights through, again, calibrated, compulsive conversations, which allow for people on the other side to either respond or to resign. There can't be something called partial pregnancy because there is no such thing as partial pregnancy. And that's what I believe in.
I understand where you're coming from, but 3-4 social media campaigns have really helped in a very small way. But I think the intensity of such things need to increase. I know some dedicated Twitter handles, some radio jockeys in Mumbai.
I'm sure there are tons of people. I totally agree with you.
I think her name was Malvika या क्या मैं नाम भूल गया.
Whatever her name was.
या वो बहुत अच्छा करती थी. वो मुंबई में है ना, बारिश के पहले जाके खड्डों की पूजा करने वाला और जंप ओवर द खड्डा, ऐसे सब
all that is fine.
सटायर यूज करके करते हैं.
जितने लोग करें, it is better. Yeah. You need to have collective voices communicating their angst against basic civic facilities. As simple as that.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. But the only thing is it can only happen. See, people find it very hard to believe that politicians are scared of people, because eventually India is a democracy.
They're all scared. You don't want them to be scared. Again, you got me wrong.
Accountability.
My objective is not to instill fear. My objective is to instill accountability. Now, I'll tell you, it's a very important point you raised. Today, someone on Twitter put up photographs of the cleanliness that has now happened on one particular stretch in Gurugram. What did I do? I tweeted saying, brilliant work. Please keep it up. And I tagged the same people who had earlier abused. Abuse means gone against. We must have the decency to salute good work. But then again, the cynics on Twitter said, but sir, they are only doing their job. Arey bhai, let them do their job. At least congratulate them. नहीं तो वो भी नहीं होगा.
नहीं, आप अगर किसी कंपनी में काम करते हो और आपका बॉस अगर आपको अप्रिशिएट करता है और आपको कोई बोलेगा you're doing your job,
and here we are citizens. We must have a sense of appreciation. This nonsense of constantly deriding people and deriding our own thing and being cynical has to go. Optimism has to be laced with realism if you want real change. Otherwise, there will be no real change.
Fair enough. Chalo, before I wrap things up, because I know you have to go in 40-45 minutes. So anything very specific, let's say if somebody was to tell you, Suhel, in the next 5 minutes, give me short-term call to action before we go. What would
3 things. Number 1, set your own house in order. And not just your own house, but even outside your house. Number 2, become responsive and responsible. Number 3, become accountable and seek accountability. 3 simple mantras. There's no bloody rocket science in this. There's no management essay. I'm not Bernard Shaw where the preface is longer than the play. 3 simple life lessons. Follow them and we all will bring about a change. Because Naib Singh Saini or an ML Khattar or a Rahul Gandhi are as Indian as all of us are. They will realize the pain and the anguish one hopes and will make that change.
मुझे राहुल गांधी ने बड़ा दिल दुखाया तुम्हारा.
No, I'm just saying. See, I have nothing against him personally. I was upset about that statement and I made my stand clear. Just like I made my stand clear when he did an excellent job with Bharat Jodo Yatra. Excellent job.
Fair enough. So just before we go, what do you make of this entire Trump thingy? Just 2-3 minutes on
As
that.
I said earlier, Trump is a bully and a bully is essentially a coward. The day you submit to a bully, he will bully you more. So the choice is to exist with dignity or to submit as a supplicant without your self-respect. It is not about ego, it's about self-respect. It's about sovereign rights. One joker sitting in the White House cannot trample the aspirations and the rights of India and the Indian people. And Donald Trump needs to recognize that.
He has threatened 25% extra tariffs.
No, if China can screw him as they have, if Russia can screw him as they continue to, there is no reason why we must be supplicants and submissive. We're not a basket or a banana, not even a republic, banana case like Pakistan. We have great talent. We have an excellent bunch of people in our country, especially the young. And I think India has a great future, whereas Donald Trump has a limited term. That's the trade-off. And that's what we have to focus on.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know if you know, 25% extra tariff और लगाया उसने. बोलता है रशिया का तेल तुम लोग
वो जो करे यार करे. We have to, जो हमको घुल के पीना पड़ेगा, but it's short term.
Yeah. Let's see what happens. Chalo, but Suhel, thank you very much for coming.
Thank
and keep raising your voice about this. And
Absolutely.
I'm always with you in this. I was
Thank
so happy to see you speak about this. Chalo, guys, we'll wrap up today's discussion. And I know it's normal se thoda short podcast tha, but Suhel has to be somewhere. So all of you, please take care of yourselves. Keep watching the Cārvāka podcast. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, tara, bye-bye.